Are live. All right. You guys are way too courteous. You guys are way too courteous to figure out what's going on. So first of all, it's very apparent. I need to get back home. I need to get a haircut. Second of all, it's just breaking about 80 degrees in Florida in the next few days. My parents reach out to me and tell me, do you have a way to get home? And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, you're expecting over a foot of snow in Brooklyn. I said, yeah, a foot of schmut, not a big deal. But apparently the whole world is in frenzy over the Northeast storm. So, okay, it got to me. I reach out to Delta Airlines, and they tell me there is no current travel advisory for the Northeast. So anything that I'd like to change my flight to, I'd have to pay the fare difference. Do you know what the fare difference was? I'm traveling with 3.5 tickets. $3,000 to go from Florida to JFK or to, let's say, the New York City area. I said, are you crazy? People are expecting more than a foot of snow. You didn't put in an advisory? They go, we didn't do it yet. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We ended up changing our flight to a connecting flight on Tuesday. Now, I have, we have responsibilities back home, but what can you do? What I did do, actually, remember that mastermind I told you I was a part of in the e-commerce world? They're having an event here on Monday, a day that I didn't plan on being here. I planned on leaving Sunday night. And I went on the website. I'm like, I'll be around in Miami. So so give me a ticket. Let me join in. So at least I made the delay somewhat productive. Anyways, enough about me. I did want to, first of all, so those of you who are coffee or other liquid drinkers, I'm a much bigger fan of iced than I am of any other coffee. And if you guys really want to know, the way here was pretty entertaining with Delta as well. I'll get to that if we have time at the end. I enjoyed Michael's happy hour on Wednesday. I totally didn't intend on making it. My, between my travel schedule and my family, I didn't think, and I mean, on a regular work day, I wouldn't make it. But I'm happy I did. I found a window of time, and I happened to be available during then. And a couple of you, some of you on the stream now, reached out to me and told me I should promote the live streams that we're doing and whatever content they're putting out there. I think it's called imposter syndrome. I didn't want to step on his toes. I didn't want to. And even though I was called on, and I introduced my kids to the whole team, I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to use his platform to take people. It didn't feel right to me. The urge was there. Don't get me wrong. The urge was definitely there. But yeah. So I didn't want to do that. Listen, I would love it, but it just didn't feel right. And the last thing I want to do is make enemies with Michael or make myself look like I'm just using him as a stepping stone. So that's one thing that I needed to get out of the way. Okay, we're here for politics, right? 5 minutes in. Two thoughts. The first, I was going to bring up last stream, but I didn't. I brought up, I think I wanted to bring up the Hawaii case in the Supreme Court for gun rights. And actually, before I go on to that one, I was listening to Michael's Martin Luther King Day of Service broadcast, and he asked Josh Shapiro 4 times for a reaction to that New York Times report, and I had to thank him for it. Michael could usually drill down on politicians avoiding the questions, but I loved how he did it this time. He never did it 4 times in a row. He's drilled down 2-3 times. 4 times is an extent that, and I've rarely seen from him before. So I had to thank him for that. Okay. Hawaii Supreme Court case. I only feel comfortable saying this because it's public record, but I am a legal concealed carried gun owner in New York City. I volunteer and protect my synagogue in a volunteer guard capacity. And it happened after the synagogue shootings in Jersey City. I believe that was a school shooting or a Jewish supermarket. Jersey City, Tree of Life Synagogue, Poway in California, and others that must have happened that escaped me. So, and then when the BLM riots were happening, and I literally had to close my warehouse because there was a protest that could have turned into a rally locally, and I had to leave early. I said it, and I couldn't call the police, frankly, to take care of anything. I said it's time. It's time. Am I nervous that I have little ones at home and statistically they have more of a chance of using it against themselves than in the case of an emergency? I am. Do I take preventative measures like a responsible adult should? I'd like to think I do. And then came the Bruin decision striking down the New York requirement of showing a discretionary necessity to have a firearm. Sean, I spent summers in New Jersey, so it's not Jersey City. It's Jersey City. Respect for New Jersey people. Let me put up that comment just so you know. Just so you know what's going on. So, yeah. Supreme Court strikes it down. Fun fact, I put in my application when the Bruin decision, it became public that the arguments were going to be argued because I knew that that Supreme Court was going to strike it down. So I put in that decision because I'm a Supreme Court politics nerd, knowing that Bruin will ultimately prevail. I get my permit, and in response to Bruin, I believe the governor called an emergency session and passed the whatever it is anti-Bruin legislation, the gun safety protection, I don't know, some ridiculous name, where the default for any public business, in addition to the sensitive spaces that they created, the default to any public business was that you may not, or any other private property, was you may not carry a firearm there if you're licensed, unless there's signage and postage permitting you to. That's a change from you may carry a firearm into any public or other private person's space that you're invited to, unless they restrict you. The reason why I use the term ridiculous to describe the legislation is because on New York's website, they posted two templates when the legislation was published. The template of you may carry a firearm here, and the template of you may not carry a firearm here, both comporting with the legislation they newly passed, which means, in my opinion, the legislature hedges that that provision will be ruled unconstitutional. Or else, why would New York State, on the new legislation publication page, publish both versions of the sign? The second one, saying you may not carry firearms here, would be unnecessary and is extraneous. But New York was hedging that this would be struck down. Now, in some jurisdictions, New Jersey sort of followed suit. It already was struck down, some at the state, some at the appellate federal level. But this Supreme Court level will make it a little different. Now, I'm totally for common sense gun ownership, I'm totally on board with the licensing process as is in New York City. You should be able to you should be mandated to take a safety course. You should be affirming that you will be training on a continuous basis on safety protocols and different storage tactics and different defense tactics if you are a firearm owner. And I have nothing against the background check. I have minor reservations against a social media check that the state wanted to do. That was, I guess, that was put on pause for now because of free speech concerns. But largely, I mean, right now in Florida, I believe they have basically permitless carry. I think you have it here. Interesting. And I think that's a little too much. New York's process, it requires a lot of time, requires above $700 in fees. But I think it's okay. It's fine. They should have your fingerprints. They should have your serial number of the gun. They should make you come into the precinct, which they do, to inspect your firearm to make sure that it's compliant and it's safe with New York law. All of this, by the way, is New York City law. New York State is a little different, and I do work outside of New York City, so that is a little help that I can use to my advantage because of different reasons. Well, I won't get into that. All of that to say, when they passed this whole gun reform in response to Bruen, they basically said, to take the words of one of the judges that struck down a provision, you can basically go out for a walk on a public sidewalk, hope that it doesn't turn into a park of sorts, because that's a sensitive space, and then go back home. The function of a concealed carry permit is dead. You cannot do anything. You could go out, go for a walk, and come back home. Now, the purpose of the concealed carry permit is irrelevant now that Bruen won at the Supreme Court level. Slowly, houses of worship came off of the sensitive places, or was changed from a sensitive place to a different kind of place, a better way to put it. And private businesses that are open to the public changed from, depending on the business, needing that sign to having some other stringencies. I don't want to divulge misinformation here, but you get where I'm saying. The function of a concealed carry permit is you're trusting so-and-so to use their better judgment to have a firearm on them, and it's concealed, and you have vetted and endowed them through the state's legislation and rights to carry that firearm. Now, I think the default position of you are not allowed versus you are allowed is infringing on the business owner's right to restrict. Who are you, state, to tell me that by default I'm saying no? I have to say no from the beginning. That's the way I view it. I understand some dissenters out there will view it in the terms of, who are you, state, to allow those people into my business? But I don't think that's really the case. It's very obvious that the state has a narrative they want to push, and the narrative is, we are against guns and we're going to put obstacles in as many places as possible to make it hard for gun owners. Like I said, as it stands post-Bruen, I have no objection, almost no objection, to New York City's intense application, vetting, and education process when it comes to owning a firearm. And a lot of gun owner associations would hang me for saying that. But listen, this is a very big responsibility. Now, but it doesn't change the fact that I know in the legislature, they're very much anti-gun in really any capacity and trying to make it as hard as they possibly can. The Hawaii case is something I didn't look into the specifics of. I'm seeing just this comment fly by. I didn't look into the Hawaii case specifically, but it's obvious that this specific case will have implications across blue states for sure, and across the nation. That's a given. So that's my spiel on the Hawaii case that I wanted to touch on in particular. I think my throat's been getting better, by the way. You let me know, guys. Do I sound better than I did on Wednesday? And Jamal, I have to click on this and respond. Let's see. And if you didn't realize, the sun is hitting my screen, so I don't really see comments too well until I focus in. But we'll make that work later. Okay, so let's put that back on. I don't have time to read it. Jamal, I disagree with all the obstacles that New York State and city and the other anti-gun states. Listen, I would rather not be there for me because I think I'm a sane adult. I think the obstacles are, I mean, listen, Jamal, it makes sense that you have to take a gun safety course. It makes sense that you have to submit your fingerprints and go for a background check. It also makes sense that you should have somebody who is willing to take control of your firearm in the event that you are incapacitated or you leave us, you die, which every gun owner does have. They have a sort of a custodian in the event you're incapacitated. But like I said, the social media thing doesn't really rub me the right way. And let's say the ridiculousness of these sensitive places, or the default position being you're restricted from carrying in public places. That's a bridge too far for me. Go into the specifics though, Jamal, unless you already did, as to why you're against it. I'd be more than happy to engage with this. Okay, so, I guess this is your explanation. The criminals get the guns anyway without all of that, and I do object to training, but I'm 100% against registries. Okay, so what I will tell you is I'm not too much of a fan that it's public record that I'm a permitted gun owner. There's an application process to go and suppress that for, I guess, any extenuating reasons you may have. I didn't have any of those reasons. I'm not famous yet, at least. But the training, I'm not so against it, man. I'm not so against it. Maybe it's better advised to have it. Maybe you don't want to mandate it. I'm not against that mandate. Okay, I wanted to transition to the second thing. I touched on Greenland on Wednesday, and I hit on the fact that Trump might claim he might invoke the 1951 treaty of that we have with Greenland, where the U.S. is responsible for its defense and can basically do whatever it wants militarily there. Trump will use that as a PR stunt to say we control some part or some function of Greenland, like he always wanted to or said he was going to do, and then pitch that as his win. We saw in Davos that he wasn't about that at all in terms of taking over Greenland militarily. The stock markets responded to that. And thank you, Ham, he informed me on the 1916 treaty that recorded the U.S.'s non-objection to Denmark's sovereignty over Greenland. It allowed for the U.S. Virgin Islands to be purchased for $25 million. And of course, it would be against international law to use military force, but I was going back and forth in the chat. There was nothing in that treaty that said we couldn't take it over militarily. Again, I didn't look into the specifics of the treaty. I just looked about rough research into it. yeah, internationally, tons illegal about invading a sovereign territory like that. But as far as the 1916 treaty, I didn't look into every single caveat, but I did see the language of non-objection over Denmark's sovereignty. There was obviously a quid pro quo in terms of the Virgin Islands and that. Interesting thought experiment, but I think Trump may take the same strategy as he's always done with Greenland, as he's done with the USMCA, and I've explained here in the past that Mexico will pay for the wall that we're going to build. And I think the tariff case, once the Supreme Court, if it rules it unconstitutional, and if it mandates the federal government refund tariffs, I think Trump will say these are tariff dividends and send them out to the American population, and of course sign the check. I just think that's the general strategy, and it shifted slightly since his announcement in Davos. And what I'm thinking for Sunday, now that's just what I had to say, what was top of mind on my own part. What I think for Sunday is, I think I'm going to cover this Board of Peace thing that's happening in Gaza. I don't see it as something that's going to work. The Board of Peace is chaired by the United States and, by extension, President Trump. He's invited President Putin, Prime Minister Netanyahu, just kicked out Canada, Jared Kushner, Tony Blair, and I'm not sure whoever else. He had a Board of Peace meeting in Davos yesterday. I don't see how this is any more than a hoity-toity production. Hamas is still armed. Hamas is basically still running the show in Gaza. I'm going to have to do some more research into it, and I guess I'll formulate an opinion by Sunday. But, gosh, I mean, I'm not quite sure what the vision is. Hamas cannot disarm. It's just not a reality. And you do let me know what your thoughts are. And let me know what your thoughts are, because I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. I just see Gaza just remaining in rubble, perhaps turning into literally West Gaza, where there's IDF presence, perhaps run by the Board of Peace, and then there's East Gaza that's still run by Hamas, and there's basically no IDF presence. And then people will be clawing to get into West Gaza if that's how the dust will settle. That's how I see it. I'm thinking of doing either that or something more in depth on the Walls-Shapiro thing, because it only occurred to me after I finished Wednesday's stream that Shapiro said in 2024 that he didn't think anti-Semitism had anything to do with Harris choosing Walls. But if he was asked if he was a double agent, why wasn't that viewed as anti-Semitic in 2024 when Shapiro put that out there? And not to put that, and also I remember the way Shapiro came out and spoke for Harris that night when Walls was officially picked. He came out with fire for Harris. Yeah. So that's just my general take. We'll go into some questions, comments. We got 5 minutes, and then we'll go about our days, right? Not all of us are on vacation. I totally understand that. Hamilton, Board of Peace tanked. Only some countries were present. Few signed up. The purpose and money are to build up seaside luxury condos, but not for anyone living there. Trump controls the money. Well, sure, Trump controls the money, and I don't think they have access to the seaboard, to be honest with you. I think they only have access to the eastern part the western part, because the eastern part is still Hamas run and Hamas armed. And Hamilton, you tell me, wouldn't you say the beachfront properties aren't a bad idea for tourism and economic viability of the area, especially if it's built from scratch? without terror and controlled with adequate safety for tourism. I mean, my parents, I think, went there on their honeymoon. They were definitely in southwest Israel or northeast Egypt, one of them. But it was a Singapore on the Mediterranean. Nancy, it's hard to disagree with you. Speech aside, did Shapiro really want Harris to win, or did he prefer the results which happened? By the way, it obviously preserved his viability, the way everything turned out with 2024. But it was a fiery and very passionate speech, maybe because he was already pumped himself on the emotions. He let it out, but he had to support Harris, of course, because of party allegiance. Yeah, could be anything. Let's go back to some earlier comments. Your gun reaction was probably up there. I wish I knew what you were referring to here. Jamal saying that it's the reverse of what it should be. It should always be legal to carry unless signed otherwise. I'm with you. You know I'm with you there. Bob is here. Hello, Bob. Oh, Hamilton, I do have a car, and I could have taken the train, but I thought to myself, you know what? If I'm making Monday productive anyway, and I'm going to this conference that I never planned on, or I thought I couldn't go to, I'll take the Tuesday morning, and by Tuesday morning we should be totally fine. I was thinking whether I should take a chance on taking a flight Monday afternoon, but Monday afternoon they may not be fine, so Tuesday morning it is. And let's see what else we got. Jamal, if one is properly carrying concealed, no one will know unless something goes bad and one has to draw. Well, yeah, that's the whole point. That's what I'm saying. The whole concealed license is trusting the person per the legislature, per their representative model, that they can use their better judgment. Cheers, Falcon Steph. Cheers is absolutely right. Iced or hot coffee? That is your question of the day. That is my poll question of the day. How's that? Yeah, and Jamal, I follow gun cases really closely too. You know why? Because of how activist blue states like New York are in the stupidest minor infractions on anything that has to do with carrying a gun. Like if the butt of the gun is showing, is that an arrestable offense? Is that like New York State, I believe, doesn't even expressly in the legislation restrict open carry. They just sort of close every available possibility that you could open carry. There's some like ridiculous way that they restrict open carry. And then Tish James decided to put out an office memo saying that open carry is illegal, but that wasn't passed through the legislature. I don't know. The willingness and the desire of blue states to pursue people simply for having a firearm is ridiculous. That's just my that's my 2 cents. And it makes me very, very lawyerish on you have to follow every single appellate case, be it state, be it federal, and you have to be very cognizant of the judges presiding. Crazy. Hamilton, we paid $25 million in gold? I did not notice that in my research of the 1916 Greenland Treaty. Wow. Boy, did we get the short end of that stick. Okay. Okay. Couple more and we'll end it off. The EU is building digital alternatives with more consumer protections in the U.S. offerings. I'm assuming you're talking about some sort of reserve currency. I am highly, highly concerned about BRICS, and because of Trump's turmoil, that the U.S. will not be the reserve currency. Trump's chaos could be a force for good. Trump's chaos is a force for bad when you want to be a reserve currency, which is predicated on being predictable. My 2 cents. Guys, wishing you a great weekend. Wish me the best. I mean, it's been raining here for the past 2 days, but I think we're good. The Sunshine State will live up to its name in the next couple of days. And wish me that my delay here in the beautiful Sunshine State will be a productive one. And I will definitely see you on Sunday. I'm going to either broadcast or going to be live. Stay tuned to your emails. I'll send a link, whichever I decide to do. Sunday, 10 a.m. seems to be my time window of publishing, so we'll go with that. And, of course, I'll be tuning in for Smerconish tomorrow. Let me know what you think about this whole cadence, too. I do need a general sense of, is this good? Should I be more scripted? Should I be more opinionated? Do I just stick on the things that I do want to talk about? Do I keep it Smerconish heavy? Do I go into news headlines that I want to go into that are separate and outside of the Smerconish sphere? Yeah. Again, I want this to be sort of audience driven, where you guys are my North Star. All the best, guys, and wishing you guys a fantastic weekend.